All right, what's going on, family? Shalom. It's Divine Prospect, Kingdom Harvard Ministries, here with a brief check-in live stream, Sundown Sunday session. We're not going to do this too late like we normally do Fridays and Saturdays because it is Sunday. So it's obligations, responsibilities to deal with in the morning. But it's a quick check-in with y'all. Want to give a couple of shout outs. I want to give first shout out to all of the Patreon pledgers for committing to ensuring that content goes up on this channel, and those resources get allocated appropriately so we can continue to broadcast and do what we do. I want to give a shout out to everybody who has donated via Cash App, PayPal, people who have purchased the shirts from us, because we got shirts that we sell now. People have donated and received a copy of their mixtape. People who got the language packs also from us, who supported that as well. And everybody else who's reached out and, to ask questions, to inquire, all the people who are signing up for membership. Right now, there's about 21 pending new people who want to join KHM. So y'all be patient. We got y'all. Also want to do a quick review session before the month of July is over, because I'm not going to broadcast again until August. Now, I'm using right now Hangouts on Air. So YouTube is saying that they're going to get rid of Hangouts on Air. So I'm just going to go back to my XSplit program and do my live streams, because they have another option, which is the direct to webcam, where it skips the Google Hangouts on Air, third party or middleman, and lets you stream directly. But the issue with that I've seen so far is that it doesn't allow you to share your screen. But I'm gonna probably look into that, further to see if that's the case. But this is easier to go straight live than setting things up in my XSplit application. But that will be coming back again in August, so I can put different images and stuff on the screen. I can do, launch certain scenes and so forth. So I'm gonna get back to that for y'all. All right. So this check-in is nothing special. I'm just, seeing how y'all doing out there. Maybe take a couple of questions, maybe show you a little bit of what I'm researching currently, what I'm looking into. I had made a post recently on Facebook where I was covering the dynamics, or the dynamic methodology that goes into conceiving and creating and publishing a biblical Hebrew lexicon, not just biblical Hebrew, but a lexicon for any ancient language, and the best way to ascertain the semantic value of a particular word. And the semantic domain aspect is really interesting. The United Bible Societies, UBS, which some of y'all be familiar with. I shared that site before, but they drafted up an article on going about creating a biblical Hebrew lexicon, but doing it in a very different way, which has to do with the relationships in regards to the semantic domain. When you see the word of semantics, simple meaning for semantics is the meaning of something, right? How the meaning is derived for a particular word. And what's the best methodology to approach ascertaining the definition of certain words, right? Or the meaning of the word. And sometimes you'll get go to the shoresh, or the root of a word, and that doesn't nearly, in some cases, explain its usage in a variation in a different passage that may not have the same contextual value that you will find the root word if it's used elsewhere. An example would be like the common verb stem, the cow stem, right? Which is just simple active voice or simple action. And if you was to go from there and maybe, modify that heavily by adding suffix, pronominal, suffix, prefix, preposition, conjunction, if you want to change that, differently, so that way the syntax measures up with the subject and the object being the predicate element of the sentence. Sometimes things may get lost in translation because there's different techniques that's utilized by different people who put together these lexicons. So it's always good to have at least 3 different lexicons if you want to determine a particular word and its usage. And there's 3 that I mean, I use 4 actually, but I'll let you know what those are. And when you read the preface of those lexicons, they pretty much give you what their style and technique is in, putting forth their lexicon. So that's something that I was sharing. Since some of y'all are not on Facebook, I'm gonna show that to y'all. This is extremely important in regards to my interdisciplinary studies of being able to restore and reconstruct ancient pre-Israelite culture. And there's different elements that have to be taken into account. And when you get into the lexicon, that's extremely important, which lexicon you use, how you use your lexicon, and learning the language helps with that as well. So I'm gonna share that, and then I'm gonna share with you an archaeological article as well in regards to ancient Israel to shed some insight on some things. And then if you got a couple of questions, you can ask. But like I said, this is just a regular check-in. So let me go ahead and see who's here. Make sure you share the link. Make sure you're subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, hit that like button, that thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. Anybody that's new in here, feel free to go and check out all the rest of the content that we got on this channel. There's little to no explicit language, no vulgarity, no ad hominems. I'm not out here disrespecting people, spending time making videos about people, cursing people out and stuff like that. So, this channel is accessible to a wide range of individuals that can watch it, and people from different backgrounds can take it in as well. It's like every week I go live, I'll put a video up. There's somebody in another country that's viewing it. So when I go to like the YouTube analytics, it shows me there's people from the Virgin Islands, people from, Benin, people from Nigeria, Ghana, people from the UK. There's even people from Australia that's watching, New Zealand that's watching, South Africa that's watching, people in Chile and Argentina that's watching, Toronto, Canada, Ontario. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of people that's watching this broadcast, and I don't know the background for all these people. Sometimes the people, they do give me a call and say, what's up? You know what I'm saying? I just had a call from a brother from Ontario the other day, right? He was in a car driving. Some, brother called me from Ontario and was trying to, talk to me and say, hey, how you doing? I discovered you on YouTube. I found the contact information on Facebook. I said, I'm just reaching out to you because, we don't have a lot of this information where I'm at. I don't have a place to go to, to socialize with other people that's on the same wavelength, etc. And just had some questions about some things, wanted to know how to be a part of KHM and so forth. So, I mean, it's touching people all over. So we want to continue to keep the content accessible because anybody could be tuning in and watching. I mean, it could be a 4 or 5-year-old. It could be somebody in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. You know what I'm saying? So I want to make this accessible to everybody. So I definitely appreciate everybody for supporting. So shout out to Yoel, Ben, Yisrael, S. McGee in the building. Thank you so much for your donation, Yoel. I greatly appreciate that. My brother Akwetiama, thank you for joining us. I appreciate that. That's one of the mores right there that I follow. My sister Ashanti in the building, 916 Sean. How you doing, sis? Yah, please lead me in your way. Shalom to you as well. Mo Spike, shalom. Matyahu Ben Israel, shalom. What's going on? There's no specific topic tonight. Like I said, I just want to go over the lexicon document with you, and then touch on some archaeology real quick. And then from there, if you have any questions or whatever, you can go into it and we can talk, right? So I want to show y'all this real quick so you can take a look here. Right, this is the Biblical Archaeology Review. All right, Song of Liberation. Every time I get these books, I read it from front to back. You know what I'm saying? And then I got a couple other archaeology books that is not biblical, because some people will say, "Oh, that's biased," or whatever the case may be. So you gotta look at everything. You understand what I'm saying? But there's some good articles in here. I'm gonna show it to you online in a minute. Something that I thought was very interesting. I mean, one thing in here that they talk about here is baking bread in ancient Judah. You see that? baking bread in ancient Judah. And then another one that was getting here. You have the stone vessels. I want to show you this other one that's in here. And this is like a special double issue. It's like 2 issues in one. This is the Song of Liberation, Freedom in the Late Bronze Age. And I love seeing images like that. I love seeing excavation sites and what's been found in situ. But the other article, oh, this one is interesting too. Baby burials in the Middle Bronze Age. But hold on, let me show y'all real quick. This one. This is a great article right here. The Wise Woman of Adel Beth Ma'acha. This is a great read right here. But you know what's funny? This right here, I'm gonna show you this fresco right here, right? It says off with his head. It says, after opposing King David, the rebel Sheba ben Bikri flees north to Abel Beth Ma'acha. According to 2 Samuel 20:14-22, Joab, the commander of David's army, pursues him and attacks the town. He likely would have destroyed Abel Beth Ma'acha had it not been for the intervention of a wise woman. Her advice to behead the rebel and throw his head over the wall saved her town. This illustration of the beheading comes from the Morgan Bible, which dates to the 1240 CE. Now, and that's what I meant to say. It's of Abel Beth, because I'm looking at it on the screen and it's reading the wrong way for me, but for y'all, it should be reading the right way. But what I want you to take a look at this fresco here. You see this fresco? Please tell me what's wrong with this fresco. Obviously, it is definitely not chronologically accurate. Okay, definitely not chronologically accurate. If you take a look at it, okay, this looks like a medieval town. Look at the garments that they're wearing. You know, the type of swords they use in the shields. So this is the imagery that is shown in this Bible. And people always have a problem in regards to how, you know, certain individuals depict these things, right? So if I was to make this, you know, within its cultural context and its chronological context and, you know, Iron Age Israel, okay, they would have a much darker hue and they would not be dressed like that. Okay, so again, this right here has a, and I want people who talk about people, oh, you making those characters dark. And so what about this? Was this okay? Was this okay? Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to show you. Oh, that's what I wanted to get into. I'm going to show you the book. That was the archaeology thing. It wasn't anything in here I wanted to show you. It was something else I want to show you. Very interesting. Very interesting. I want to show you. But let's get into the lexicon real quick. We're going to get into the lexicon real quick, and then we're going to jump into some archaeology. What I want to show y'all something is from this book. It's a very, very, very awesome read. It may not be easily accessible to everybody because it's written in a kind of like academic way. So if you're not privy on some of the definitions of the terms that they use and how they use it, you know, sometimes it can get a little, you know, boring, right? But for me, it was a great read for me. But I want to show you this book, man. This book is great. I got some other books that I ordered that's coming in. One in particular that's coming in, and I want to share with y'all. And I'm explaining to you why I'm going through all of this. But I'm gonna show you this book in 1 second. Let me get to the document, right? The document here by the United Bible Societies. All right. First, let me show you their website. All right, hold on. Okay. So let me show y'all this. I think I showed this to y'all before. I'm not sure. Hold on. Yeah. Hold on. Let me see. I'm on their website. I'm trying to find. Oh, here it is. This is it right here. This is it right here. All right. So let me show you this. So I'm going to show you this from the website. And then from there, I want to show you this document because this document helps you to understand what I'm about to show you. Okay. So let me first put the document on the screen. Let's go through this document real quick. And I'm just gonna go over the first 3 pages of the document. And then if you guys want it, you can download it from their website and read it. It's a great read. It's very short. It's only 32 pages, and the other 2 pages is the references, right? But let me show it to y'all first, and let me show you the website, and I'm gonna show you a really good tool that you guys can check out, okay? So let me grab it. Give me a second. Hold on. Give a couple more shout outs. Shout out to Tim Lindley in the building. The Watsons, G Deb, son of Shemites, LNL Tracks. Shout out to the Black Av in the building. All right, I think that's everybody. If you want to shout out, hit 2. Let me get you. If you want to shout out, hit 2. All right, hold on. All right, let's do this. All right. Okay, hold on. All right. So again, let me give another shout out. Shout out to all the Patreon subscribers and pledgers. Shout out to people who have recently donated. We appreciate it. Shout out to people that send in the resources over here to us to make more things possible. Thank you for your prayers and your support for keeping this live stream going, keeping KHM fueled so we can make a difference in the community. We greatly appreciate that, family. So let me show this to you. Hold on. Let me show you my screen. Let me do this first. And let me show my screen. All right. Hold on one second, y'all. Give me a second. All right. All right. There we go. All right. So the name of this document is called Towards a New Dictionary of Biblical Hebrew Based on Semantic Domains. All right. So the introduction is, in the course of the years, many dictionaries of Biblical Hebrew have been published. New dictionaries are on their way. Lexicographical insights have changed a lot over the past years. However, this paper deals with the question as to what extent modern lexicographic insights can be used in Biblical Hebrew lexicography, right? 1.1 traditional approaches. I'm gonna read this portion for you, right? And then we're gonna transition to the site and we're gonna elaborate a little bit on that and then go into the archaeology, right? So traditional approaches, right? One of the key questions in semantics that needs to be answered before anybody can embark on the enormous and tedious task of creating a lexicon of Biblical Hebrew is the following. How do we find out the meaning of a particular word? If we study some of the more traditional Hebrew dictionaries, we can see that a number of criteria have been used to determine the meaning of a particular entry or sub-entry. Let us briefly look into those criteria and try to evaluate them, right? The number 1 is etymology. This is information about a particular word on the basis of internal reconstruction, whether or not sometimes with the help of data from related languages. If, for instance, we compare the meaning of a particular word with the meaning of the root from which it seems to have been derived, we can draw all kinds of conclusions about the possible meaning of that word. Although a word study of this nature may provide us with useful information, its significance is often overemphasized. As we will see later, the real meaning of a word is discovered when we study it in its context and the largest possible sense of the word. There are numerous cases of wrong exegesis of biblical passages because of the fact that the exegete leaned too heavily on the etymology of a particular word. Comparative linguistics. Our knowledge of Biblical Hebrew has benefited immensely over the last centuries from discoveries of manuscripts and inscriptions in related languages, some of which not even known to exist before those days, like Ugaritic, right? The decipherment of those texts yielded a treasure of new insights in the linguistic mosaic of the ancient Middle East and helped to discover other meanings for certain Hebrew words that had hitherto been hard to interpret. Again, this is important information as it can be used to substantiate the claims of the authors of the dictionary that particular word must have meaning A rather than meaning B. And again, when you go into the Ugaritic, which I will go into in future broadcasts, you'll see exactly what this means, right? And this is how what they do is when you get a Semitic root, a trilateral root, they look for the same root in other languages, right? And when I say languages, I'm talking about sister languages, right? Or neighboring languages like, East Semitic, West Semitic, South Semitic, Central Semitic, etc., right? And what it does is that it helps to draw more, Aramaic. It helps to draw more or pour more into understanding that Hebrew word from the Proto-Semitic element by looking at the other comparative linguistic data from other sister languages and be able to best appropriate how that term should be utilized within that text. And it helps to explain certain things. And Ugaritic has helped in understanding certain things when it comes to biblical Hebrew, right? And I can demonstrate that, and I will demonstrate that soon. But you can also look that up on YouTube. It's there, okay? In spite of this, however, one has to be very careful with this information. Now, listen to this. As it originates from different languages with different underlying worldviews and cultures, and in many cases, with only a limited data corpus. So we can't look at the usage of every trilateral root that is similar in, let's say, Ugaritic and its usage in Ugaritic text and say, okay, automatically, since that predates what we have today as far as the scriptures are concerned, that is how it's supposed to be used, and then take it and superimpose it into the Hebrew. So even though you're going to look to it to give you some additional insight into how the word is being used in biblical Hebrew, you cannot superimpose its semantic value from that sister language right on top of biblical Hebrew, because there are two different cultures with two different worldviews during two different periods of time, different environmental stresses, different trades and businesses going on, different political system and structure set up, different social structure set up, even though there's similarities within the cultures, but there's also differences. Okay, so we have to be very careful with this. And you see this a lot when you look at like a Gesenius or BDB, right? You'll see where they give you the other, Semitic languages to help you kind of get a better understanding of what's going on there in a biblical Hebrew term, okay? So it says, and in many cases, with only a limited data corpus. Moreover, and we see that also with Ugaritic. Ugaritic has a limited data corpus, okay, because of the amount of text that we have of it. Moreover, a word has meaning only within its own language and its own period of usage. And the primary method for determining the meaning of a word is by studying it within the context of all passages where it's found. That right there, which I teach as one of several exegetical methods, or midrash methods of being able to seek out and extract what's in the text appropriately, is being able to look at all passages that utilize that word. Because remember, the text wasn't written by one author, right? It was written by several different authors during different periods of time, during different situations, scenarios, etc. Therefore, if a word is used somewhere in, let's say, the book of Job, and we see the word pop up again in Jeremiah, right? We may see the word may have the similar semantic value, or there may be a variation of the semantic value based on how it's used within its context, which is extremely important. Okay. So the semantic analysis. Okay. So we did the etymology, we did the comparative linguistics. Now we get into the semantic analysis. The dictionaries listed above usually contain some degree of semantic analysis. The gloss that is considered to represent the main or basic meaning of a particular entry usually precedes the glosses that point to meanings that are understood to be its derivatives. Now, that term gloss is extremely important once you get into the language, because we gloss over the definitions of a lot of words by, again, superimposing our contemporary understanding of something and putting it onto a text. I'll give you an example. That term sefer that people translate as book. Book is a terrible translation for the word sefer, because books didn't exist during that time. Scrolls existed, right? Or what we call manuscripts existed, right? You didn't have your codices until you get to the Christian era. Okay, so keep that in mind, that there are glosses based on the contemporary worldview of the translator that is placed on top of the term, and therefore its semantic value is derived from the gloss that is imposed onto the term, as opposed to how that word is properly defined and understood within the cultural context and a chronological context in which it was used. So we know we cannot equate Sefer to a book because it was different. Now, it may have a similar function, but they're not the same item, right? Unraveling a scroll is much different than opening up a book. It's almost a similar method of opening, but it's two different devices. Okay. So again, if you stick with that idea of a book, it's going to keep you in a contemporary state of mind and not project you into the past, so you can better understand that term within its proper context. All right. So the gloss that is considered to represent the main or basic meaning of a particular entry usually precedes the glosses that point to the meanings that are understood to be its derivatives. Unfortunately, however, a structural semantic analysis is often lacking, which is important. This is a detailed study of the way different concepts in the world behind a language are perceived by the speakers of that language and how these concepts are transferred into semantic forms. Okay, such a study gives us a lot of insight into the meaning of words and the way different meanings interrelate. As Barr observes, however, the semantic analysis of the older dictionary seems often to be defective and needs to be rethought. Going to the Gesenius and BDB, we see that in there. But now there's some more modern ones that I lean on that help you to kind of like, it gives you more updated information, right? Because like they said, more inscriptions are being found, more manuscripts being found. There's a better understanding of sister cultures and their languages within their context. Archaeology helps to bring things to light as well. So all of this is really responsible for helping you to reconstruct the not just the language, but the culture. When you take all things considered, it's a full spectral analysis. It's the only way that you can look at material and immaterial items and be able to synchronize it to better restore what's missing today, right? Because a lot of times what we have today is just dogmas, right? That's been shared with us, that's been given to us, that's been fed to us. So we have presuppositions before we go into the text. And a lot of that has to be flushed out so that way you can better understand within the context of what something was used, how it was used, etc. Right? Now, the last one has to do with syntax. All right. Syntagmatic relations. Dictionaries often contain a certain amount of syntagmatic information as well. Now, syntax has to do with how certain words within a sentence relate to each other. And again, this is like goes into us looking into like the henotheism thing and the divine council, or the heavenly court or the mighty ones, or however you want to, say it. And when we look at the verb subject agreement rules in Hebrew, and how when we look at Bereshit 1:1, that doesn't follow, right? Because you have to have number and gender match, right? And looking at number and gender for both the verb and the subject, we have some differences there in Hebrew, whereas we have a singular verb form with a plural subject. So the question is, well, how do you fix that? And then that's when people go into, oh, that's the majestic plural. No, it's not the majestic plural. That has to do with the consortium of mighty ones, or the heavenly court, or the divine council, however you want to label it. And again, this is why syntax is important in giving you understanding of a word. So when we say, this word bara, right? And then we go and look at this word Elohim, looking at these two things within its lexical value, and then trying to derive from the lexical value, what is this semantic implication, right? To ensure that we flush away the glosses and get strictly to how it's used within the context during that time period, and makes us to better understand that the way they thought is not how we think. And a lot of times our current understanding of things, we try to place it onto the text, and that is the wrong way to do midrash or to do exegesis. All right. So I say this because I want us to be very careful. And when I do my analytical studies, right, I'm trying to, take all these things into consideration so I can best restore and reconstruct what's being said, right? Not just by the text, because that's just the immaterial data, but also the material data in the archaeological realm as well. As well as looking at sister cultures, sister languages, going into history, any documents we have for history, any academic articles or books that's written on the subject matter, etc. All these things considered, so that way we can best reconstruct it. And once you're able to restore and reconstruct it, now you know how to, or at least you can take the step to learn how to apply it today, right? Because you see the context of which it was used then, and you're able to translate it into an application today to yield the same results that they were able to achieve at that time, all right? So listen, it may sometimes be important to know which preposition a particular verb requires or whether it is followed by infinitive or not. All right. And I'll touch more on biblical Hebrew as we go into other lessons and other live streams. So that way you can understand what a preposition is that's prefixed to a particular word, or looking at the infinitive of a verb and seeing, okay, what's going on in regards to this infinitive, because these things help you to better analyze the syntax of the sentence so you know what's going on there. And this is why learning biblical Hebrew is important, because you get to see these things and better assess, analyze, and then apply what it is that you're reading, okay? This, however, is a syntactic information and not of the same nature as semantic information. Semantic is getting the meaning. Syntax is how the various components of a sentence relate to each other, okay? So these are two things to keep in mind when you're analyzing a particular passage, all right? Many of the traditional dictionaries, though, come up with mixtures of syntactic and semantic data, which may mislead the user and keep him or her from gaining a clear insight in the meaning of a particular word, okay? I love reading articles like this. It gives you so much insight, and you go back to your studies and say, wow, you know, I didn't even realize that. Let me go into this one real quick with y'all. I guess I'll go into the glosses real quick. The major weakness of many of the traditional Hebrew dictionaries, however, lies in the fact that instead of giving the meaning of a particular Hebrew word, usually not more than one or more glosses of that word in the target language are given. This actually does not apply to Hebrew dictionaries only, but to many traditional dictionaries of other languages as well. This is a pity because a set of glosses only gives a limited insight in the meaning of a particular word. Glosses, according to Barr, are not themselves meanings, nor do they tell us the meanings. The meanings reside in the actual Hebrew usage, and for real semantic analysis, the glosses have no greater value than that of indicators or labels for a meaning which resides in the Hebrew itself. Hence why I give an example for gloss, which is the word book as opposed to the word scroll. Okay, for that word that we get there for sefer. Okay, now let's continue to go. And also, just thinking about it, most of the books that we have now are done on printing presses. They didn't have printing presses back then. Okay, again, there's a lot of implied things when you have that word book there. You got to understand this. you know, with a scroll is parchment that is rolled up, and you have to roll it and roll it, and you know, together or unroll it very carefully because it's subject to damage. And then you have somebody that has to write on that parchment, allow it to dry, and then roll it up. And then that thing was extremely heavy and bulky. It's not the same thing as having an ebook today or having like a small magazine or a book today, pocket books today. You know, it's not the same thing. So all types of things get misconstrued when that word book there is the gloss for that word sefer when it should be a scroll. Okay, this is it's pretty much what it's explaining to you here, and why we have to go back into the culture to understand these things. All right. The use of glosses can even be misleading. If a certain entry in a particular dictionary is listed with 3 glosses, the average reader may get the impression that the entry has 3 meanings, even though those 3 glosses may be practically synonyms of each other. I see this all the time in the BDB and the Gesenius, right? These are some free lexical resources that is utilized on some websites, okay? Because it's in the public domain, so it can be used, right? But again, this is why having, you know, if you're going to use the Gesenius and BDB, having a more modern lexicon, and I'm going to show you a couple of them if you're interested in it, and also have the BHS, which is the academic standard derived from the Leningrad Codex, right? All of these tools and resources are important because it helps you to better interpret what's there, right? You can parse it out, you can translate it, you know, and some people do slavish translations, right? But also to interpret the meaning of what's going on there, okay? If a certain entry in a particular dictionary is listed with 3 glosses, the average reader may get the impression it's 3 meanings, and it's not. So I'm not going to do it tonight, but I'll do another exegesis midrash on another verse, and I'll show you a particular verses plural that you see this phenomenon occurring in, okay? If you want to know the meaning of a word, we need much more information than can be contained in a simple gloss. It is interesting to note that a number of monolingual dictionaries, now monolingual dictionary is Webster's dictionary, okay, Oxford Dictionary. Why is it called monolingual? Because there's only one language. It's written about the English language to an English reader. Okay, when you have bilingual, now you have a English reader, and then the actual lexicon is in another language, and now you have to best translate the terms there and that other language to the English reader. Okay, so monolingual dictionaries don't have a lot of issues with glosses, right? Sometimes connotations can add a gloss, but you get a good dictionary that gives you the etymology of the word and the development of the word as well, so you can kind of catch to see what that is. But I say that to say, we can't assume that when we read a lexicon that we can read it the same way we can look at a Webster or Oxford dictionary. It's not the same approach. Okay. A good example of such a dictionary is the Concise Oxford Dictionary. Many people, however, seem to think that the only reason why dictionaries of this category make use of definitions rather than glosses lies in the fact that these are monolingual dictionaries and certain words simply do not have the synonyms that could function as glosses. But according to Wizard Bika, when it comes to concepts encoded in words of a foreign language, especially a culturally distant one, which ancient Israel is, the intuitive link between a word and a concept is missing, and a full definition is the only way of ensuring true understanding of the cultural universe encoded in the lexicon, in the language's lexicon. Now, I'm gonna skip through a lot of this stuff because I'm not gonna go through and read all of this right now, but I'm gonna show you what they've done using the semantical approach in regards to relationships on how they were able to draft up their lexical semantic domain. Okay, what they did was they broke things down in objects, events, and relationals, if I'm not mistaken. Objects, events, and relationals. And if you see here, they go into relations, reference, and markings, and explains relationals that link objects and or events, relationals that relate objects or events, and relations that point to objects or events. Each of these three categories can be split into two subcategories depending on semantic classes they link, replace, or point to objects or events. Rationals of the first category, relations, are related to state processes and can therefore be subclassified in a way that is similar to the way the semantic class of events is subdivided. The following subclass of relations are found, and they break it down for you as far as relationals. They also go into the events. The following four lexical semantic domains are found for the semantic category of events: a description, a position, a connection, and a perception. Okay, three subcategories is the state process, the action, and the causative. All right. When we go up to objects, as far as the semantic category of objects it's concerned, the following 8 lexical semantic domains were proposed. All right, mind you, they put in together a brand new biblical Hebrew dictionary. So they want to take a better approach so we can get the most out of our studies, right? They break it down to animals, deities, parts, people, plants, products, scenery, and substances. Substances is all inanimate objects shaped in a way that they usually cannot be counted, but are used to measure instead. Scenery, all inanimate objects with the exception of plants, even though plants are animate objects, but whatever. They usually cannot be moved, okay? Products, all inanimate objects, usually of a relatively small size, produced by people, deities, animals, and plants. Then plants, people, parts is all objects that cannot exist in isolation, but are an integral part of another object and therefore usually occur as part of an associative construct or require a possessive pronoun. Deities, all supernatural beings, and animals, all living creatures with the exception of human beings. This is an excellent structural breakdown of how words should be defined and associated relationally in regards to their semantic value within a lexicon to better give you insight to what the text is saying. Learning grammar is another level of being able to understand it. But remember, the syntax, which is some of your grammatical elements, the morphology, how something looks, the phonology on how it's spoken, okay, the orthography, how something is spelled, okay, all of these different elements are extremely important in reconstructing the cultural understanding of what took place in that distant period of time that is far removed, thousands of years from where we're at today. Okay, the event section is divided into its parts, which is description, position, connection, perception. I think I went over this already. Relationals, I went into that. And here's a quick example so you can see kind of how they're breaking this thing down, okay? So we have this word here, habab or hob, right? Right here. We have the objects, which means it's saying it's an object, which means it's a part, which we saw broke down up earlier. You have habab here, which is a verb, right? It's events, it's a description, object, state, and process. The hitpayel, to become solid, of substance, of liquid substances as a result of low temperatures during cold weather. We go up here, we see this word right here that we see, the word chob, right? It says a small bag formed by a folded piece of cloth, part of a garment used to carry small objects. Wow, I think they need to edit this. Small objects which will not be visible from the inside. Okay, that's almost like a pocket today. Okay, but if you see how they designed the garments at that time, it's a form. It's like a pocket, right? Now look at this. If we look at it as crafts, clothing, and do a search for publicity or a wrong, so one way to semantically interpret this word is a wrong. Well, how do you get the semantical value of wrong from this word that means a small bag formed by a folded piece of cloth? Well, if you go and look into the context, to hide one's iniquity in the fold of one's garment. So it's like hiding something that should be given to somebody, but you're hiding it in the small fold of your pocket or the garment. Or in our case, we call it a pocket. So it's hiding your iniquity from somebody else, which can be perceived as something wrong, depending upon the context. So somebody use that word chob as a noun and say, oh, that's chob, or that's wrong. The best way to interpret that, going into the semantic value within the cultural context, what should come to mind, what would have came to mind to people at those times, but won't come to mind to us today, is, oh, this person is hiding something from us, right? Because that's what you do with your pocket. Your pocket is there to conveniently hold things and also to hide items from other people, right? If you have a wallet, you want to put it in your pocket to hold the wallet, but also to keep it out of sight from possible people who want to steal. So if you go to Job 31 and 33, you'll see how this word, that's an object and it's a part, which means it's dependent upon something else, how it's interpreted as the word wrong when you understand what it is. And the approach that they're taking with this dictionary makes this better accessible to the reader. Okay. All right. And they go all down on how they set this thing up, right? With the same word. Okay. So again, this is an excellent article. Let me go and show y'all the site real quick. Let me go back. Let me show y'all the site. Hopefully y'all enjoying that. Hopefully y'all able to take that in. I know it may seem like a lot of information, but it's good stuff. It's really, really good stuff. Shout out to Ariyahu Williams. Shout out to Ricky Stansberry, Daryl Yahoo Bendora, Jamila Hawkins, Blurred Vision, Daoud, Yachanan L, Inwa Kahan, K Israel, Kwaku Danielle, Rodney Frederick. What's up, Kwaku? Yeah, it's been a while, Aki. The Shepherd, Justin Alexander Pereira, Mr. Black Culture, Araya Jackson, the Watsons. Thank all of y'all for tuning in. Hope y'all enjoying it. If y'all are enjoying it, hit that thumbs up button. Hit the like button if y'all enjoying what you're getting right here. Let me know. Again, this is some of the stuff that I utilize when I do my studies and interpreting certain passages. So that same approach, which is extremely interesting, I think I'm going to take that going forward, because some of the lexicons out there, that people use for free, you don't get a lot of that kind of structural breakdown. But UBS on their website, I'm going to show you their website. This is how they pretty much breaking this down. So I'm going to show you a couple of other lexicons. So I got digital copies of lexicons, but I have a physical one coming in that I used before, but I wanted a physical copy of it, right? Sometimes it's better when you have that physical copy. And I want to show it to y'all on how it, matter of fact, if you go back and read that article, it breaks down a lot of the mainstream lexicons that's being used in the realm of academia, or even outside of academia, in that article. And the ones that I use, all of them are in that article. Okay. Now the DBL is also in there too. The Dictionary of Biblical Languages, Semantic Domain. All right. And you got the Holot one, the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament. Then you got Klein's Dictionary of Biblical Hebrew. Okay. Those are the ones I like to use. And I like to use the enhanced BDB, which is an updated version of the BDB, which is the Brown Driver Briggs. So all of these things you can purchase, get access to. And again, but UBS's approach, I'm telling you, man, when I stumbled upon this, I'm like, yo, this is awesome. This is much better, because what it does is that it looks at all the lexicons I just mentioned, looks at its strengths and its weaknesses, and where it's weak at, they attempt to strengthen. Okay. So let me go ahead and show y'all this. Let me bring this up and show you the website real quick. All right. Let me bring up the website real quick so y'all can see this. All right. So here we have this word ab, right? This word ab is here. We all know what that means. We say that means father. And their semantic dictionary, biblical Hebrew, is the first entry, hence why you see 0001. Over here on this side, ab is a noun, father, in 553 cases, grandfather, ancestor, father, which is the founder, advisor, father, as in the creator, the first person to, father as a protector, helper, father, place of security, place of comfort, father's house or family. Then you have the ancestral tribe, which is ma, te, and then you have your abot, right? Your ancestral tribe. Then you have your ancestry, which is abot. Then you have abot again, which is your family possessions, patrimony, father as title, would be abiz, right? And huram abi. And that word abi, that word ab is father, but abi is the yod suffix is the possessive construct, which is my father, right? So it breaks down ab here, and it breaks it all the way down here for you. It gives you all the different derivatives of ab that's used in the entire text. And you can click on any one of them. If I do here, abi, right here, right? Abi, or if I do obed, right? Non-exist, dead, or whatever the case may be. So it breaks it down for you. Hold on, let me get it. So this is the semantic dictionary of biblical Hebrew. Okay, it gives you if you click on background, it breaks down to you what it is, how it's set apart from other biblical Hebrew dictionaries, sample entries. It gives to you here, so you can kind of get an idea. So here, as the noun for masculine, it gives you all the derivatives of ab. And it says kinship equals a direct male progenitor who normally provides protection, care, instruction, and discipline, is usually regarded with respect and associated with wisdom, security, and comfort. So the father of the home, hold on real quick. The father of the home, according to the culture, is one who provides protection, care, instruction, and discipline. Okay, it's usually regarded with respect and associated with wisdom, security, and comfort. That is the role of the father or the head of the house. And the head of the house doesn't mean that you ruling everything. Okay, you have somebody as a co-agent and assisting you who has their respective role, and the children have their respective role. But these are the qualities of that cultural norm which would have been accepted in their semantical understanding of what the term father means, kinship, parenthood, and it gives you all the places in which that is properly applied, okay? Now, again, this is just showing you sample entries. You can search the domains up here, right? The lexical domain, contextual domain, if you want, include subdomains. You can go to a search and entry, right, for any word, right? Let's say I do gar, right? Or let's say I do any word that you could say. Oh, let's do this. Why is it not pulling up? I don't know why it's not working tonight. I was trying to go to guard, which means stranger, which means brother, but it's not pulling up right now. But I'm gonna go back and take a look to see what's going on. But anyway, you can search by entry, you can search by domain, and I think the entry might be the entry, the root entry, which those are roots themselves. But so we're gonna skip past that. We're gonna skip past that. Excuse me for that. It's taking care of stuff in the background. But we can skip past that, and pretty much their approach with the Semantic Dictionary of Biblical Hebrew, according to that document we just read by the United Bible Societies, is an excellent approach that they're taking for us to better understand the text. Now, that which we read, that's not completed yet, okay? But this right here is some examples of what they're doing. And I don't think they have every entry. They only have 5,352 entries here, okay? So some of those words may not be entries in it that they have properly defined yet. Because I know I've searched words in here before and it came up. But just wanted to show you this so that way you have another tool in order to better, understand the text. All right. So let me get out of that. Okay. So let's move on. I'm gonna close. Well, before I close it. Okay. All right, so let's move on next to archaeology. I'm gonna show you something very interesting in archaeology that we're gonna check out, that I want to show y'all real quick. So shalom to D Walk in the building, Dashboy 007, Tikva Batya, Dwayne Yosef, Henry Campbell, Zodiac Music, Dan Yaal Yasharala, nominative masculine singular. Yes, I could do that. But let me first try to get through this archaeology thing, and then we can talk on that. So do you have a particular context in which you want me to define the nominative masculine singular, right? So the nominative we see in Hebrew as it's defined. I would like to show people a lot, so that way they can get the best point of reference. Hold on, let me show it to y'all real quick so y'all can see. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm back. All right. What was it? Oh, Danya Al Yasharala. So Danya Al Yasharala, we can get into that right now if you want. If you want to go into the nominative masculine singular, you want to see an example of that, let me know if you want me to break it down. But those of you, like, for example, anybody that wants this as a reference, let me know. I have the electronic version I could send to you. I mean, you can order this from Amazon too if you want. And it's like $8 or something like that. And what it does is give you a reference guide to these things as well. So that way, when you teach something, you have a point of reference, right? Because anybody could teach you anything, but if they don't give you a point of reference to verify and validate what they're saying, then what is the point of that? So you're saying John 3:16. Oh, you're talking about in Greek. I knew you was probably going there in Greek. Now that has to do with the declensions in Greek. I'm okay in Greek, but my Greek is not that strong. So I'm not really going to even go into that further with you. I could do some analytics on it and pull that out for you, but I have to do that another time. But I thought you was going into biblical Hebrew, but if you're doing it in John 3:16, that's fine. But if you want to email me for that, that's cool. I'll parse it out in the Greek, and I'll explain what's there for you. So that way, whatever you're trying to get from it, you'll have it. But yeah, send that request to me and I'll parse it out for you in the Greek, and then I'll send it over to you. All right. Yardinia, strong shalom to you as well. So let's see. So in Hebrew, for example, right, your nominative would be like your subject, right? Masculine singular, right? And we would see, well, what is the nominative and the accusative, right? So you have accusative, which is your object, your nominative, which is your subject, and then you have your predicate or your verb clause that's in there as well, and that would be your complete sentence. And you can be able to look at the declension in in Greek, because Hebrew has declensions too, or inflection, declension in Greek, and be able to see what that is, right? So my sister that's in here, 916 Shanshan, she's much better in the Greek than I am. I'm better in the Hebrew, but if you want to know how to determine that in the Greek, I can still parse it out and send it to you and kind of explain to you what you're looking for. So I think when you're talking about John 3:16, are you saying when it says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son"? Are you trying to find out what the nominative is in that verse? Is that what you're asking? I'm not sure if that's what you're asking. If it is, let me know. Oh, shout out to 960 Shanshan. She just said nominative is the subject. Exactly. Shout out to Curtis Morgan and Building D Walk in the building. Thank you for joining in. Forky the Spork. Hey, what's up? Yardina, can you do a lesson on who Esau is in the 12 tribes chart? I did a lesson on who Esau is about 5 years ago. It's still up there. It's called From Esau to Zionism. Who are the Edomites today? I think that's what it's called. You can go ahead and check that out. Y'all let me know what you think about it. But I did that about 5 years ago, but you can check that out. The 12 tribes chart, I didn't do a lesson on that yet. I don't subscribe to the 12 tribes chart. As far as its accuracy, I know why its usage was there. And the elders that crafted it together, what their purpose was. But for me, I seen some inaccuracies in it, so I don't utilize it, right? But that's another subject matter altogether. But I don't have anything that I've done officially on that. As far as the sole purpose of women, I have some videos on that. I have one I did on Ruth, and I did one that I did on a closed mouth don't get pled. All right, so you want to check that one out. A closed mouth don't get pled, and the one that I did on Ruth. Just go to this channel, type in Ruth, you'll be able to see that. So Danya Al, make sure you send me that email so that way I get it. I still don't see it yet, so send it to me as soon as you can so I can assist you with that. But also put the requesting. What are you trying to analyze within that passage, right? What are you trying to determine? What are you trying to extract out of it? How are you trying to exegete it for better understanding? Just let me know. If you're just simply looking for the nominative singular, masculine singular, I mean, we can look for that in the text if that's what you're interested in. Let me know. But if you have a passage in Hebrew looking for that, I can help you check that out if you have one right now. But anyway, let me move forward. I want to show this archaeology book real quick, and I want to show you something that's very interesting because a lot of people get very dogmatic when it comes to ancient Israel because again, everything is taken from surface value from the text. A lot of people are not going into the archaeology and using that in an interdisciplinary way to kind of make associations so you can get a better reconstruction of what's going on. So let me show you this book, and I want to show you something very interesting in this book. All right, let me show you this book. All right. Hold on, let me grab it. Where is it at? Oh, here it is. Okay. So let me do this. Let me do this. And let me invite y'all to check out this book. Here it is. All right. All right. So this book right here, let me hide this so you can see it. It's called Family and Household Religion in Ancient Israel and the Levant by Raina Albert and Rudiger Smith. I'm gonna try to let you read for y'all a little bit of the introduction so you can see what it's about. But before I do, let me show you the contents, right? First one is the introduction. Second one is the methodological reflections, right? The third one is elements of domestic cult in ancient Israel. What you mean domestic cult? Divine, what you talking about? So in the family home, did they have shrines? Did they have shrines to ancestors? Did they have shrines to Yod-He, Wav-He? Did they have shrines to other deities? Did they have votive offerings in the house? Did they have food offerings, burnt offerings? Did they do these things within the home? Wow, this is deep because we will see that they did these things. So now when you see somebody, like, for example, if somebody came in my house and I had a shrine up there to your Wafe, yeah, but like, oh, you got a shrine in your house? Yeah. I mean, this is what the Israelites were doing. Like they had shrines in their home. They was even told how to make certain shrines. When you go into ancient Israel, the excavations in ancient Israel, you'll see this was a common thing. People even had a preparation room with foods and items before they created a shelf that was in the house that was used for a shrine. Very interesting. But only those who are religiously dogmatic and zealous for only what they get from the surface of the text will find an issue with that. It's not an issue when you understand what it's there for. Now, one thing you'll see that's interesting, that there were not any in Israel and Judah household images of deities, right? We have anthropomorphic features that may be in certain votive offerings, but the images themselves on the walls, like hanging up on the walls or plastered on the walls, was not there in ancient Israel and Judah. And the text tells us why that's the case. Now, the text did not exist the way we have it today during that time. And the text itself derives its narrative and its information from the culture of that time. Okay. So we know that the archaeological in situ structure of what it is that we examine from that home is what has the influence on the text, not the other way around, because the text did not exist during that time period. All right, elements of domestic cult in ancient Israel, typology of Iron Age cult places, personal names and family origins, which they link back to the domestic cult and the internal family religion. Certain homes and households had their own religion. See, when you read certain things in the text, right? Like, for example, when you look at different names of the tribes that's there, and then you see the social structure. I got the book that's coming on the way. I have articles on it, but I got a book that I had ordered that goes more in depth into that. You're going to see a lot of interesting details that you cannot get simply by just reading the text. But let's continue to keep going. Rights of family and household religion, care for the dead in the context of household family, and the summary, which goes into research history, methodology, archaeological evidence for domestic religious practices, typology of cult places outside the domestic realm, in the symbolic world of family religion based on personal names. Rites and rituals of family religion, care for the dead in the context of household and family religion. And then we have all these appendixes here, which is excellent. This was a great read. So that I don't take time up and read everything, let me go to the summary. Okay, let's go to the summary. And I want to show you some things in the summary. Why did it go take me back here? Okay. So it's going to be stubborn right now. Okay, hold on one second. Let me get y'all to the summary. All right. All right. In order to overcome particular uncertainties and controversies in previous scholarly works, we found it necessary to clarify several terms and concepts at the outset. According to Nave Herz, the term family is defined by four distinct features: its dual biological and social nature, its distinguishing of the generations, its structuring of specific roles, and the unique cooperation and solidarity of its family members. Pre-industrial families, such as those living in ancient Israel, undertook four main functions: the basic functions of reproduction and socialization, and the economic functions of production and consumption. Because of the ambiguity of the term family, especially in English, it is helpful to combine it with the term household. A household defined as a group of co-residents, people who live under the same roof and typically share in common consumption. Referring not only to the co-residents themselves, but also to their production and consumption activities, the term household extends beyond the living area to include the hardware of the family: tools, granaries, wells, livestock fields, orchards, as Myers has pointed out. The two terms, family and household, overlap because both include the functions of consumption and production. Incidentally, the combination of the two terms corresponds to the biblical terminology, the Hebrew word for what we call the Beit Ab, which is house of the father, also combines a location term with a kinship term. Moreover, members of the household who were not actual relatives, such as slaves or resident aliens, can easily be included in the term family household. The specific familial functions of reproduction and socialization, however, foster a sort of cooperation and solidarity that, as Nave Hers has emphasized, can differ in form and content in different cultures and historical periods, but always constitutes a very specifically declared relationship, which is distinguished from any other relation of social interaction in a given society. This structural sociological difference seems to be one of the reasons for the existence of family religion as a distinctive phenomenon. Okay, let me fast forward. Archaeological evidence for domestic religious practices. Despite growing interest in the issue of family religion, the archaeological evidence for ritual activities in Iron Age houses has only been acknowledged occasionally, and the phenomenon of cultic elements in secular contexts has never been addressed systematically by scholars. Our aim in this book was to fill this gap and to investigate the ritual apparatuses in domestic context on a broader archaeological base than ever before. Our investigation re-examined domestic and related structures from Iron Age 1 to Iron Age 2C by analyzing their contents based on three categories. Category A, unambiguous ritual objects such as stands, altars, figurines, amulets, etc. Category B, objects with possible ritual use, such as chalices, goblets, cosmetic items, lamps, collectibles, etc. And category C, utilitarian objects such as cooking pots, storage vessels, stone, and other tools, etc. Insofar as it was possible to judge from published materials, we reconstructed assemblages of ritual objects, or at least determine typical usage patterns of ritual objects and their relation to architectural features and to utilitarian objects in category C. In our study, we surveyed 29 Iron Age 1 structures containing category A and B artifacts. Of these, about 53% yielded strands or fragments thereof, and 46 had chalices or goblets that could be associated with them. Approximately 31% of the assemblages contain zoomorphic terracotta figurines or vessels. Your zoomorphic terracotta has to do with the animals that they use, or created clay items out of, created animals out of clay or other kind of earthly materials. Miniature shrines were rare, appearing in only 2 of the assemblages. The predominant ritual actions performed with those vessels seem to have been libations and possibly dry offerings such as bread, grain, and fruit. 1/3 of the assemblages clearly belong to kitchen installments, and 76% of all domestic assemblages that contain category A or B objects also contain vessels for the production and consumption of food. So now, what we would determine what our shrine is to them, it would be where they put their votive offerings at, where they would put food offerings at, where they would put grain offerings at. These are things that they would do with the shelf that they created in the home, which would be a pseudo shrine or a shrine of some sort. And now we know also, again, like I said, how the text tells us how shrines should be made from stones that are not, like we had the smooth and the rough and smooth ashlar in masonry, like they say in masonry, that you have these stones that are rough, that have not been smoothed out. And this is how your, shrines, or this is how your altars should be created or formulated, right? So the miniature shrines were very rare, but they also had things that resemble shrines in which they put certain offerings on to deities or kept there for deities, right? And it goes into more details here. Based on analysis of more than 80 instances of cultic items found in domestic and related contexts from Iron Age 1 to Iron Age 2C and the ritual paraphernalia found in those contexts, we can conclude that ritual objects often assembled and arranged near fireplaces or other facilities associated with the processing and consumption of food on the ground floor. Additionally, ritual objects were located in storerooms and also occasionally in debris from second stories, pointing to ritual actions that were occasionally performed in upper rooms or on the roof. In Iron Age 1, 2C, there is no evidence of fixed ritual installations as domestic shrines or sacred corners of the house. Rather, ritual objects were arranged and used situationally and simultaneously in different rooms according to the demands of the ritual. So the rituals dictated the cultic practices of the family, what they call family religion, right? Or the means of which the family is doing certain things in the home to appease to the deity. And a lot of times you will see this for people, who usually cannot make it all the way to Jerusalem or Samaria or whatever. They would have these things where you see that it was a mobile kind of like shrine or altar. It was like mobile, right? Depending upon the needs of where it was in the house, etc. It's a very intriguing book to read, to look at this. And then once you gather this information, it's like, okay, when I go back and look at the text, where is this coming from? So I'll give you an example. Matter of fact, let me pull it up after I read this. I'm gonna show you an example of that, right? So it goes on to say, as demonstrated in chapter 2, most houses in Iron Age 1, 2, Israel and Judah would have contained nuclear or extended families who would thus have been social carriers of the domestic cult activities represented by the ritual objects. Contemporary Transjordan structures manifest closely related ritual practices, as was true in the Iron Age, Phoenicia, Syria, perhaps also Mesopotamia, okay? Based on occultic apparatus found in domestic structures, we can conclude that the predominant ritual actions were libation rites with stands and zoomorphic vessels, dry offerings in the stand bowls, the burning of aromatic compounds. So you telling me they had incense and essential oils diffusion system in the home, and this was part of the rites that they would do within the house? This is very interesting, very interesting. It says, as well as votive practices and other ritual actions with human and animal figurines. The ritual apparatuses suggest that daily offerings and gifts were given to deities and ancestors, the latter of which may have been represented by the human figurines. The human representations, predominantly the JPFs and Iron Age 2C, are not divine representations, given their lack of divine emblems, but more probably likenesses of humans expressing human needs and wishes, such as fertility, plentiful progeny, ample lactation for the mother, etc. They were generally multi-purpose objects used in various contexts, especially for votive practices. We define votive practices as the use of the figurine as an ex voto, both to give thanks for a benefit from the deities and to give the deities and to the deities in exchange for a benefit. They also served as media for prayer by representing the petitioner, and for magical rites such as love charms and tropaic rituals. Unambiguous divine figures carrying divine emblems used in domestic cult activities have not been found in Iron Age Israel, but they are occasionally found in Transjordan, Phoenician, and also Philistia, where they were more common. Now, when we read the text, again, remember, this cultural chronological context is what influenced the text, not the other way around. So the things that we see show up in the cultural mandates in the text is reflecting what was done during this period. And as the text developed over time and to the final redacted form that we have now, certain things were outlawed, certain things were accepted. This developed over time, depending upon the needs, the political structure, the environmental pressures, etc. Okay, so again, when you read this book, it is extremely mind-blowing to know what was actually done by the people during that time. And again, when we see here about the elements of the divine representations not being there and things of that nature, they understood that their laws or their mitzvot was do not create, an image of any likeness that's in the earth, that's in heaven above, etc. But look at this. They have things of animal figurines. Animal figurines would be animals that's in the earth, right? But the interesting thing is these things were not detailed, which is interesting. So they kind of made it was an animal, but it was also kind of like ambiguous as well. And that's because they didn't want to get to the point of worshiping these items. They did not worship these items. These items assisted in their worship. These items were not being worshiped. Now, when the worship was pulled away from the deity and attributed to the actual item, that's when it becomes idolatry, right? Or if it's done to a different deity and it's not the ancestral deity of the people, now it becomes an issue as well. See, when you look at this data and you properly interpret it and appropriate it to what we see in the text comes to life even more, because this is what influenced the text. Okay, so I think I want to stop there. Oh, let's look at this real quick. Because of the scarcity of religious texts that have survived from the world of ancient Israel and Judite families in the pre-exilic period, because that's what we teach here, we needed to explore the symbolic world of religious beliefs by a detailed investigation of theophoric Hebrew personal names that are frequently attested in inscriptions on ostraca, seals, bullae, and weights. The corpus drawn from several recent publications comprises 675 different personal names that appear 2,922 times together. Some of them come from the 10th and 9th centuries BCE, but most from the 8th to 6th centuries. For the sake of comparison, we combine the Hebrew name corpus with some smaller corpora of personal names from Israel's ancient neighbors, the Moabites, Ammonites, Arameans, and Phoenicians. Altogether, they total 895 names and 1,394 occurrences. Only the Edomite onomasticon, and your word the onomos, which means name, was excluded from the statistical calculation because of its small size, 19 names with 20 occurrences thus far. Although some scholars have been skeptical, most have acknowledged for a long time that Hebrew personal names provide suitable, though perhaps not ideal, access to the personal piety of ancient Israelite families. The names undeniably come from pious families. A large percentage of them are theophoric, up to 90%. According to the biblical narratives, they were chosen by parents with intent and deliberation, probably during a naming feast when the days of the mother's purification had ended. Moreover, the name's religious statements overlap with the religious statements and the individual prayers in the Hebrew Bible to a significant degree. Thus, they reflected, as did the prayers, the religious crisis of the family, primarily of the mother during the dramatic, dangerous process of birth, but also other family members during struggles for survival. To understand the significance of personal names, one must categorize them accurately. This is crucial. Developing Knopf's proposal further, we group Hebrew names in 6 categories: names of thanksgiving, names of confession, names of praise, equating names, birth names, and secular names. Personal names from Moab, Ammon, Syria, and Phoenicia, at least the names of Northwest Semitic origin, can also be grouped in the same categories. Amazingly, even the distribution of the names among the 6 groups is similar in all Levantine onomasticons. There's a high percentage of thanksgiving and confession names. The 2 name groups, which are closely related together, encompass about half of all personal names in each of the 5 onomasticons. The same is true for the somewhat smaller number of birth names, which amount to between 1/4 and 1/3 of all personal names in a Levantine onomasticon. The praise name and equating name groups are small in each of the 5 cultures. And then we can go further, but I'm going to stop here. Now, let's look at something interesting. There's a heavy amount of names of thanksgiving and names of confession that are found in their analysis, and lesser amounts of the praise name and equating name groups, which is interesting because it begins to explain the family names children based on events. Okay, they name children based on what they want from the deity. So every time that child's name is spoken, it's invoked. Okay, all of this is included into the family's piety or their pious rituals that they perform, which goes in alignment with what we've seen previous, because those rituals help to dictate how the name is applied to that child when that child is born, or if a name is given to somebody, like we see, for example, when we look in the scriptures and we see in the book of Judges, Gideon, his name is changed to a theophoric name that consists of the word Baal, which means contend with Baal, but his name is changed to Baal. It's reflecting the event that took place and why he took on a different name. But when children are named after they're born, it could be because the mother had a difficult, childbirth with the child, or we see the situation with Eli and his 2 wives. We have a situation where something was being requested of Yah, and a woman is conceiving in her old age, etc. All of these things are very, very important. Like we see Shemuel, right? When you look at the root word Shem, which means what? Name of El, a character of El. We see something very, very interesting that reflects the family, and not just the state-sponsored religion, but the family element, which tend to be overlooked when we read the text. This gives a lot of insight when you start to read this type of data and do the analysis and the comparative studies and interdisciplinary studies with the text. It breathes certain things to life. It breathes certain things to life that you did not see before. And as you can see, they have a huge amount of conclusions on the name element, which is probably one of the longest chapters in this book. Right? Rites and rituals of the family religion. It says, of utmost importance to families were the religious activities and rituals associated with the human life cycle. Pregnancy and birth were a crucial and potentially dangerous period in a woman's life, and therefore were accompanied by rituals and religious observances. Although biblical texts provide no explicit evidence for birth rituals, which may have been the sole purview of midwives, both the Bible and the Hebrew onomasticon provide us with some important information about ritual activities related to pregnancy and birth. Women who had not yet given birth could address the deity with lament and vows at the sanctuary, as Hannah did in 1 Samuel 1, which I just referenced. They did this because conception and the creation of a human being were considered a divine work. Ritual protection of the child is attested by amulets of the god, Egyptian god Bes, as well as the appearance of the god's name in Hebrew onomasticon, Kadbes, which is Bes has formed. Birth-related ritual observances included the mother's purification period, 7 days after the birth of a boy, 14 days after the birth of a girl, and on the 8th or 15th day, the feast of name giving. The feast to celebrate the birth began being replaced in the 7th century by the circumcision of infants, which originally had been an apotropaic rite de passage at the age of maturity. Circumcision then became the badge of religious identity during the exile. Different from the birth and circumcision, marriage, otherwise regarded as an important step in the religious life of a person, was, according to both biblical and extra-biblical sources, merely a legal action accompanied by blessings. Monogamous marriages were the rule, and polygyny of the patriarch seems to have been the archaism. Moreover, endogamous marriages were preferred by the exilic and post-exilic authors in order to maintain the religious integrity of the people as a whole. That is extremely important when you look at the exile and the captivity situation, how they had to adapt certain rites, rituals, and practices because of their situation, which we would have to do the same thing today. Hence why you got to examine things, how it occurred within its context, extract it from its context, and translate to better apply it to this contemporary perspective that we have today on certain things and be able to yield the necessary results. It says, this was, however, a point of debate, as the book of Ruth attests. Another important social issue, according to the book of Ruth in Deuteronomy 25, 5-10, was the so-called Levirate marriage, the obligation of a brother to marry his brother's widow if she had no offspring, in order to ensure the continuation of the brother's line and the widow's sustenance. One of the most important feasts by the calendar was a feast of Passover, which underwent several transformations from an originally pre-Exilic ritual only performed by laymen in a family setting. Okay, let me go back to this. Hold on, let's go back to this. You know, when you see it talk about Pesach and it says to do these things within your dwelling, where do you think that came from? Before it became a national holy day, holiday, moed, it started first in the home. That's deep. When the monarchy came on the scene, the game changed. This is before the monarchy. And then the monarchy took that and created a national moed out of it. That's deep. So let's keep going. Apotropaic elements as preserved in Exodus 12, 1-13 to a centralized pilgrimage feast as depicted in Deuteronomy 16, 1-8, where it says that your men have to appear before the Most High 3 times out of the year. It transitioned. So initially, it was just something done in a home, and then it ended up being a national deal where everybody would come to Jerusalem and perform this duty, or wherever the name of Yah was placed. Because I did somewhat of a debate with somebody, a discussion in regards to that subject matter as far as where the name was placed, right? Performed by the priest, and the lamb, which was originally to be consumed, was transformed into a zabach offering and associated with the agricultural feast of unleavened bread during the exile, as attested by the priestly adoption of the old feast in Exodus 12, 1-13. The festival regained its family setting. Despite the claim of strict centralization and priestly control over the Passover in the post-exilic era, the family character of the festival prevailed in the Second Temple period, including public slaughter and domestic consumption. In contrast to Passover, the Sabbath apparently was not a religious observance of families in pre-exilic times, but was simply a day of rest. During the exile, the 7th day was combined with the traditions of the full moon festival. It gained religious and cultic dignity as a family celebration, and also served as a token of religious identity. In addition to the weekly Sabbath, the post-exilic holiness code promoted the older custom of an agricultural fallow year every 7th year to the level of religious observance. So what is this saying? This is showing you the transformation of the cultic family practices and how over time, when the priests started to gain more power, when the monarchy started to arise, how things became to be centralized and became national, and these requirements were then added that we see in Deuteronomy as opposed to we see in Shemot, or we see in Devarim as opposed to we see in Shemot or Devarim, right? So when you read this book, along with several other books that touch on different components of what this book is bringing out, you get a whirlwind of information. It's like, wow, I know it helped me with my studies. I'm sure it will help you with yours as well. Going forward, when I go to exegete or do midrash on additional passages, I'll make references to things that are mentioned in these works. But let me show you what I want to show you real quick in regards to the cultic thing regarding the family home, a text that will help to bring that out. Okay. I don't know if hopefully y'all liking this. If you're enjoying this, hit the like button, hit the thumbs up button, hit 1 if you're enjoying what is being read so far. I know it's late. Wow, I need to end soon right now. I didn't even know it was this time, but I'm about to end in a few minutes. So unfortunately, I won't be able to take any questions right now, but I will going forward. Thank you, Sister Shan, for putting that on there. It's towards a new dictionary of biblical Hebrew based on semantic domains, all right, by the United Bible Societies, all right? So thank you for posting that, sis. I appreciate that. All right. So if you're enjoying it, hit 1 or hit thumbs up or hit the like button. All right. I know it's a whirlwind information. I'm a little bit tired, so forgive my acuity right now. But hopefully, like I said, this information, you'll see that when you do real objective studies, how much better you'll be able to interpret the culture that you're trying to restore and reconstruct and apply. Okay. And this information will begin to give you cultural autonomy so you can build better communities. All right. I don't see a lot of people in our community bringing this type of information out. Not saying nobody is, but I have not seen that. So I felt a need was there and it needs to be met. And this information needs to be presented to the community so we can take it in stride and we can do something with it. And it will enhance your understanding of the text. So the immaterial element by itself is not enough. You need the material elements as well to get the best interdisciplinary analytical study possible to get the best interpretation of what your culture is, what it was, what it is, and what it can be, and how once you have the template, you can adapt it to various situations, scenarios, etc. All right. So what I will start doing for myself after reading that book a couple of times and similar books is be able to deconstruct and decentralize a lot of what we see in the text. Because look, I'm gonna show you why this is important before I get to this passage. People say, oh, you can't keep all the statutes, laws, and commandments because you're no longer in the land. And they'll say stuff like that, right? Because there's no priest there and there's no temple. But what they fail to realize is, what about the familial cultic practices, rites and rituals within the home that was already being done, and what influenced the national practices and the redactions from the later priestly scribes that we see in the text? Because if we can restore these things back into the home and increase its significance, then when we gather together, it would have more relevance. And then we can take those things after we deconstruct it, and we can reconstruct it at a more, micro level within the home. And then from there, we can restore these practices again. So for some people that say, oh, I can't make it to, a temple, I can't make it to a congregation, these are things that you can do within your home. You can do these things within your home. If you know how to rightly apply it, see what they did, look at what the text says, and harmonize it, now you can then restore what was missing and put it back into your home. So the statute, laws, commandments, and all that other stuff that people would say, and there's no temple, there's no priest, and all of that. It's like, when you look at the archaeological element and the analysis on the excavations, you see that this stuff was already going on in the home. No matter where they dwelt at, they would do these things in their home. So we're talking about things that change over time because of a national emergency, right? Because remember, when we read the book of Samuel, it was because of the Philistines fighting them, who were more organized, more structured, and had their kings, that they wanted a king and wanted to be structured and organized like the Philistines. And that was not part of the Most High's original plan. All right. So I'll start to bring these things out, right? This will be your minchagim, or your mincha, your customs, or your minchagim, your customs. And these customs dictated what we see that's in the narrative text. Remember, the text was not written to address the familial social structures of the community, right? Of the Beit Ab. It was designed to be national literature, and it was centralized on the deity, the king, the priesthood, and things that was perceived to be Zedek in the eyes of those three entities. But what people fail to realize is through the groupings of the individual families and their social memories and oral traditions that they have recounted that made its way up the chain, that influenced the writing of this thing on a national level. Because you look at the Wellhausen model that goes into the documentary hypothesis, and it shows you the Yahwist, the Elohist, the priestly, and the Deuteronomist scribes that contributed to the text, and then later the redactor. You start to see these different elements, how they fit in, and then how they apply to what we see happen in Israel and Judah from the archaeological surveillance. Okay, so people need to understand that it's this depth or level of studying that will help you to actualize your culture. You don't no longer have to be super metaphysical and abstract and, just have these philosophical discussions. It's the concrete elements that anchor the text into the culture. So you have to marry both material and immaterial together in order to get the full spectrum understanding of what is being conveyed. It's a time capsule within itself. And sometimes we're just reading the labels on a time capsule. We're not really even breaking it open and see what's in there. Because I can create a time capsule. Think about this. I can create a time capsule and I can place it somewhere. Somebody can come back behind it, find the time capsule. And on the time capsule itself, the outer covering that has all the items contained, it can list for you what's in it. It could say there's a watch in there. It could say there's a book in there. It could say there's a pillow in there. So we know the items as they're there, but until you actually open it up and physically be able to analyze it empirically, the items, and handle the items for yourself, you'll never know how much depth is in what was preserved and why it's there, because you've never gone below the surface of just looking at the labels on the time capsule, but you're actually looking at the items, and after examining the items, you can see how it was applied within the context of the people who left the time capsule behind. You okay? All right. So with that, I'm going to end here because it's late. I need to get ready for bed. But hopefully you enjoyed this session. Hit the thumbs up if you did. Like this video, share this video. If you're new to this channel, subscribe. Let me see who else is new in the chat. Shout out to Dylan McCormack in the building. Quincy Claiborne in the building. Black Ave in the building. Carla Sphere in the building. Gathering of Israelite Nation, Netherlands in the building. You said, what's the name of the book? Name of the book is Religion, Family and Household Religion in Ancient Israel and the Levant by Rainer Alberts and Rudiger Smith. Okay, you can go back and rewind this video and you'll see, because I have it on there. All right. Shout out to Donnell Jones. Let me see. Shout out to Vanessa Satterwhite in the building. Lee Brew. Sign of the Times TV HQ, Mind of Joshua. I think I covered everybody. DJ. If you want a final shout out, hit 2 if you want a final shout out. Hit 1 or thumbs up if you enjoyed the content. If you want more content like this, let me know. We can go into it much deeper, because like I said, when I see a lot of people teaching, in regards to our community, a lot of people just stick to the text a lot, and it's like, okay, we can get into the text, we can deal with the text, but they miss all the other stuff. And a lot of times they even take the text out of context with their pretext or subtext, or, or the eisegetical methods, or whatever the case may be. A lot of things misunderstood. Hence why when you see the lexicon that I showed you, why that's important, along with syntax. So your semantic value, your syntactical value, and looking at comparative linguistics from other cultures, all of these things have to be considered when using a lexicon, which only brings you back to the culture, which you got to see in the material elements that we just mentioned earlier. It's all of it harmonizes together. So a lot of times people don't do the full spectrum analysis on all the data in order to derive an interpretation of how to apply the culture today. And they don't realize why they don't get the same results. And all I want to do is inspire and motivate y'all, all of y'all, to take this research further than what I can, right? You'll have the advantage that I don't, because nobody taught this to me, right? I had to do the extensive hours and hours and nights of research in order to formulate what it is that I teach and try to have it as anchored as possible. All right. Yes, Donnell Jones, the email is kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, is right there in the description. So you can email it there. Like I said, hit the 1 or thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit 2 if you want to shout out. Danya Al Yasharala, I'll give you another shout out. TJ Max 100 in the building. What's going on? Lawana Waiters, how you doing? Chief Mike, no problem. I just read you said you don't need a shout out. My bad, but shout out to you anyway. Ariyahu Williams. But again, family, do not let anybody dogmatically mislead you to just thinking that the text by itself is all you need in regards to your culture. That's not true. And being that this pre-Israelite culture is even more distant, unless you have a proper lexicon or know the approach that a lexicon is supposed to provide to you, that you really can't get without the archaeological elements. I mean, looking at other, sister languages can help, but without the material culture, you cannot really get the most out of understanding this ancestral heritage. You're not going to get that. Okay. And again, if you're too dogmatic, you won't get this. You're going to reject all this. You're going to throw all of this out. But this is extremely important. I'm telling you, when you read this about the home and the family and how the family worked together in regards to these rites, these rituals, etc., and what they had in their home and the results that they were given, right? We can demystify certain things, but still apply the ones which gave them results, and then measure that against the template of the text, harmonize it, and then now we can better explicate this information to people who are interested and how we're able to achieve cultural autonomy over our communities. This is something that we must have. A lot of times the information that we get and the things that we utilize comes from the way it's interpreted by other ethnic groups, other religious groups. And we cannot do that. We cannot become autonomous if we rely upon them doing it. We have to take the same data and apply it ourselves. And this is why I also mentioned why halakha today is important, right? You have your two types of halakha, right? And you have your narrative type, you have your legal type, and find a way. How do we get this to better ascertain how we can create halakha and apply it within our modern contemporary context? And I've done a video on the halakha, right? It was called Walk It Out. I explained that, went into detail about that. But sometimes I just feel like the community, some people in the community just are not getting it. They don't care to get it. They're rejecting it. And it's crazy because of all these other groups that are attacking us because we're not doing these type of studies. And I've been warning the community for years that we need to get on top of this if we're going to defend our worldview. And it's been like a lot of people have just ignored it or bypassed it or reduced its importance and just say, we got to go to the text. And I go to textual criticism and I show you that that's not correct. And we go into the language and the lexicons and we pick things up that people tend to gloss over simply because they don't have the understanding and they're not trying to dig a well deep enough to hold all that excess water when there's a need. And this is what I'm encouraging you guys to do, right? Take this information and elevate it, refine it, make it better, right? Create methodologies out of it, right? Show us your application of it in your home or in your congregation, or even what you can share on social media. Put it out there. Allow it to be common within the community and have us deal with the subject matters at hand. All right. So shout out to True Boy 37 in the building. Dorf L, have you read or heard the book of the Generation of Adam? Yes, I did. That is a pseudo book. And I don't mean pseudo like just to dismiss it. I mean, it's a pseudo book, and we can get into why that's pseudo at another time. But hopefully you enjoyed it. But like I said, and some people want to know what did I know. My brother asked me before, and this is something that I'm still doing a lot of research before I apply everything. As far as, well, what ritual should we do in the home daily, on the Sabbath, on the Hagim, the feast days, or whatever the case may be. And I gave some suggestions, but I'm like, well, this is a work in progress that I'm still trying to do, because I don't have a lot of help doing this, because most people are not interested in this, right? So it takes more time and work and effort for me to research it and bring it out and try to interest people to say, hey, let's research this together and let's reconstruct something that applies to our current condition. And when I tell people that you get a lot of clarity and understanding the preservation of a lot of these practices by looking at West African communities in which a lot of us over here have derived from, they have preserved a lot of these things that we see that's in the text. They've preserved it. And the way that they practice it is the way that has been preserved over time. Hence why we can identify the halakha in their practices that help us to get to cast more light onto the text. So not only do you read the text and look at archaeology, but also say who today have these ancient pre-exilic practices. That's why I did walk it out. Okay. Hopefully somebody's hearing me. Hopefully this will help somebody. I pray to the Most High that it will. If you want more information on familial applications of these things, let me know. Like I said, I'm still working on it to try and create a definitive template for y'all. But if this is something that you'll want more, let me know. Email me, let me know. Share this video, thumbs up, subscribe. Show that you care about the content so more research can go into it and I can share more data with y'all. So thank you all again for watching. I appreciate everybody that joined in. I hope you enjoyed this session. Like I said, forgive my acuity, verbal and mental acuity. I'm a little bit tired, but I'm gonna try to be as sharp as I can as a surgeon's knife next session, so we can get into more deep stuff. Because again, like I said, I just feel stagnant in this community. I just feel it's really stagnant. There's really no hallmarks being reached, and no milestones being achieved, and no in-depth studying. A lot of it is like metaphysical. A lot of it is what they call spiritual, even though the spiritual elements come from the culture. The culture dictates your spirituality. I try to tell people all the time. People say, oh no, spirituality or spiritual stuff is greater than the culture. But I try to explain to them, your culture is dictating how you perceive spirituality. And if you're reading the text and have no familiarity with the cultural and chronological context in which it was written or what it was derived from, then you're not applying the culture of the people who lived during that time. You're using some other culture to define and understand certain things. Hence why looking at the United Bible Society's methodological approach to the lexicon is even a revival and a reconstruction on how to better understand the culture. It's deep. It's deep. So with that, let me end off, because I would love to talk for another hour or two, but I don't have the bandwidth of time. But again, like I said, you have all the information there in the description. If you want to donate, if you want to contact me, I'm on social media or email, everything is in the description. I want to shout out to everybody who joined in. Another big shout out to my Patreon subscribers, people who've helped with donations on PayPal, Cash App, and GoFundMe. Everything that you donate, helps things go a long duration. People who are trying to get our services now has more accessibility to it. Currently, I'm helping somebody in regards to atopic dermatitis. There's the consultation fee, but it's been cut down, and their regimen has been added, which is normally, what we add a fee for educating the assistant on that, simply because of donations. Donations has helped people get these services that we created and offer because they've given. So we can show you how the donations are assisting not only the things that I'm doing, my endeavors, as Divine Prospect, but KHM as a whole and how we're trying to help the community. So thank y'all for everything. I appreciate it. Ariel, who says, when is your next live and broadcast going to be at? Well, my next live more than likely is going to be at home, like you see where I'm at right now. And it's going to be either Friday or Saturday this week. All right. So y'all tune in. If you want to know when it is, you're going to have to click that notification bell. Hit subscribe, click the notification bell, and you'll get the heads up when we go live. All right. It's more than likely going to be done in the evening time. Try to do it a little bit earlier than this. But those of you who are frequent members, shout out to Gabrielle Israel in the building. Those of you who are frequent members, you're familiar with how we get down, right? If not, join the club, right? Check out the content on this channel, share it with everybody that you know, and let's get this information out. All right. B Banks, what's up? I love y'all. Much hab to the family. And so I'll meet you again. Shalom.